There is a quote from Adam Muto, the showrunner who ran Adventure Time through its final seasons, that I've been sitting with for a long time. He gave an interview to HuffPost around the time of the season 6 home release, and someone asked him about the fan theories that suggested the whole show might be Finn's coma dream, or a delusion, or a role-playing game, and Muto said that almost nothing seems too strange for an Adventure Time theory, but all the ideas that the show was a dream/delusion/role-playing game were, and I'm quoting him directly here, too easy. Not wrong, too easy. That's a very specific response. He didn't say, no, the show is definitely real. He didn't say, yes, you caught us, it's a dream. He said the theory was too easy, meaning the show was doing something more interesting than that, meaning a theory that reduces everything to it was a dream doesn't give the show enough credit for what it's actually doing. And the thing about too easy is that it's also definitely not true. The showrunner said the coma theory was too simple, not that it was impossible, and that's the specific territory tonight's script lives in. The theories Adventure Time never denied, not the theories the show confirmed, not the theories that are clearly fan fiction, the theories that sit in the exact zone that Too Easy describes: possible, suggestive, never dismissed, and built on real evidence that the show put there. Tonight, we're spending time in that zone. The theories the show never denied are different from both confirmed lore and pure speculation. They're the specific middle space, ideas the creators were clearly aware of, that the show never moved to contradict, and that have enough textual evidence to feel like something the writers were keeping deliberately open. So get comfortable if you're watching this late at night. Good. This is exactly the kind of content for late nights. The ideas that sit in the space between certainty and speculation, where the most interesting thinking about fiction tends to happen. Subscribe if you haven't. It genuinely helps us keep making these. And then let's go. We're starting with the Finn coma theory, because it's the one Muto specifically addressed, and the way he addressed it is the most interesting thing about the whole discussion. The theory, in its most elegant form: Finn is a real child in the real world. Adventure Time, all of it, the Candy Kingdom and the Ice Kingdom and the Mushroom War and the 1,000 years of history and the cosmic entities and everything else, is what exists inside Finn's sleeping mind. The details vary by version. Some say he's dreaming normally. Some say he's in a medically induced coma after an accident. Some say he fell into a coma after losing Jake, his only real-world friend, and the world he built inside his unconscious is the world where Jake is still alive, and they have adventures together. The evidence people assemble for this theory is interesting, even if you don't accept the theory. Contains recognizable elements from the pre-Mushroom War world: cars, technology, food brands, cultural artifacts, in the form of ruins. If Finn is a contemporary child who lost consciousness and is dreaming, the ruins of the familiar world make sense. They're remnants of the world he knows, incorporated into the dream. The post-apocalyptic setting is what a child's unconscious would produce if it was trying to construct an adventure world while partly aware of the familiar world it came from. The show is extremely preoccupied with dreams, dreaming, and the question of what's real. King Worm, Season 4, Episode 18, aired August 13th, 2012, storyboarded by Steve Wolfhard, Somvile Xiophone, and Bert Yoon, is entirely about Finn being trapped in a dream that keeps resetting. The King Worm creates a nested series of false awakenings. Finn thinks he's broken the dream, wakes up, and is still dreaming. This happens multiple times. The episode is formally constructed as a series of convincing realities, each of which turns out to be false. And here's the production detail the Wikipedia article on King Worm provides. At the end of Evicted, Finn and Jake encounter the King Worm, who puts them in a trance. The ending of King Worm, however, seems to imply that Finn and Jake were stuck in a trance between the events of Evicted and King Worm. This could be interpreted as suggesting that the events between the two episodes existed only as part of an elongated dream. Ward responded to this interpretation in DVD commentary, saying the idea bothered him because he didn't want to destroy the reality of the series. Adam Muto separately noted that if the events between Evicted and King Worm had all been a dream, there wouldn't be much point to that. These responses are interesting. Ward says he wanted to preserve the show's reality. Muto says there wouldn't be a point. Both of these responses are arguments for why they wouldn't want the theory to be true, but neither of them is a categorical denial that it is. They're telling you what they wanted to do, not necessarily what the text does, and there wouldn't be much point is exactly the kind of dismissal that coma dream narratives can survive. They argue that the dreaming frame gives the content more meaning, not less. The more sophisticated version of the Finn coma theory doesn't try to reduce the show to "it's all fake." It tries to explain why the show functions the way it does, why Finn is consistently the most morally reliable person in a world full of damaged beings, why the world reshapes itself around his emotional development, why the things that frighten Finn most keep appearing and keep being defeated. In a dream narrative, Finn's centrality isn't just the show focusing on its protagonist, it's the dream being about the dreamer. When I put this to Muto's too easy response, I think he's right that the simple version is too easy. The version where the whole show is just a dream and therefore nothing matters is too easy. But there's a more interesting version of the theory, one where the dream is what matters precisely because it's a dream, where Finn's unconscious mind building this specific world tells you something real about who Finn is. That doesn't feel too easy at all. And the show never denied that version. It just kept making episodes in which Finn's fears showed up and were defeated, in which the world bent to his moral development, in which the dream logic of the narrative was consistent enough to feel like it came from inside one mind. The theory that Adventure Time could be read as a dream narrative without the show being lesser for it, that's the theory the creators never denied, because denying it would have required them to make a different show. Now let me give you the BMO theory, because it's the one I find most formally interesting and the one with the most direct textual evidence for it. The theory, BMO is not just a character in Adventure Time. BMO is, at some level, the unreliable narrator of Adventure Time. The show is, in some sense, BMO's story, experienced through BMO's perspective, shaped by BMO's imagination, organized by BMO's desire to make sense of the world. The evidence begins in 5 Short Graybles, Season 4, Episode 2, aired November 12th, 2012, where we see what BMO does when Finn and Jake aren't around. BMO talks to their reflection in the mirror, naming it football, pretending to be a little living boy, performing elaborate scenarios for no audience. BMO has an extraordinarily active imagination and a consistent habit of narrativizing ordinary events into dramatic stories. This is confirmed and extended in BMO Noir, Season 4, Episode 17, aired August 6th, 2012, storyboarded by Tom Herpich and Skylar Page. When Finn and Jake leave the treehouse and Finn can't find his sock, BMO constructs an entire film noir mystery. The Adventure Time wiki explicitly states the episode is filled with hints that the plot of the episode is nothing but a part of BMO's imagination. BMO voices all the characters. BMO moves the animals' lips as if providing their dialogue. BMO builds an elaborate narrative with femme fatale and shadowy alliances and a murder investigation, all about a missing sock. And the BMO Noir wiki notes something else specifically. When BMO passes out and has a hallucinatory sequence, BMO asks, "Is this real?" while punching a mirror. The show, in its BMO-centric episode about BMO constructing a fictional narrative, has BMO question the reality of its own experience, the AV. Club review of BMO Noir makes this observation. BMO is essentially a child living in an imaginary world, and because he's a video game system, the lines between fiction and reality are especially blurred. Entire worlds exist within BMO when someone is playing a video game, which makes it easy for him to transform ordinary reality into something more suspenseful and dramatic. Entire worlds exist within BMO. That's the key phrase. The Distant Lands special BMO confirms something about BMO's narration that the theory anticipates. The special is structured as a story being told. We see BMO narrating events to a child named BB, and the framing device makes clear that the specific events of the special are BMO's account of what happened, told from BMO's perspective, potentially shaped by BMO's narration. The Adventure Time wiki notes that Olmo tells BMO that their imagination lets you see the world how it could be. Now extend this. The show Adventure Time is about the land of Ooo, but which version of Ooo? The one as it happened objectively, or the one as it was experienced and narrated and shaped by the beings who lived through it? The specific quality of Adventure Time, the way the show treats even very dark events with a specific warm tone, the way the emotional stakes are always clear, even when the narrative is strange, the way the world feels consistent from inside, even when its logic is dreamlike, is the quality you'd expect from a narrative told by someone who loves the story and wants it to make sense. BMO loves Finn and Jake. BMO is a narrator who constructs narratives. The show the audience is watching is a narrative someone is telling about Finn and Jake. The theory that the show is, in some sense, BMO's telling of events, BMO's account, BMO's framing, BMO's emotional interpretation of what happened, is never denied by the text. It's actually suggested by the text in multiple places. And here's the specific thing the show never denied: the frame. BMO, the Distant Lands special, ends with BMO, very old, telling the story of what happened to BB. The show's final extended work about BMO is structured as BMO telling a story. The show's relationship to BMO as a narrator is established at the end of the show's run, not the beginning. What if it was always there? What if the specific warmth and narrative coherence of Adventure Time is BMO's voice? BMO telling you what it was like from the inside to love the people it loved. That's the theory the show never denied, because the show actively built it. Subscribe if you haven't. We're just getting started. Here's the theory about the Lich that I find most philosophically interesting, and it's one that the show's own dialogue sets up without ever fully resolving. The Lich calls himself the Ceaseless Wheel. This is in Whispers, a Season 8 episode, when the farm world Lich's severed hand confronts Sweet Pea. The full phrase, the Lich describes himself as the Ceaseless Wheel, the last scholar of Golb. But the wheel imagery is the piece I want to focus on. A wheel is cyclical. It comes around again. It doesn't start and stop. It rotates continuously. When the Lich calls himself the Ceaseless Wheel, he's not describing himself as a being who can be defeated. He's describing himself as a process that repeats. The theory built from this: the Lich's physical defeats throughout the show are not defeats in any meaningful sense. They are pauses in the wheel's rotation. The Lich gets defeated by Billy, ends up in Amber, gets freed, gets defeated again, gets imprisoned in the snail, eventually gets Billy's body, gets transformed into Sweet Pea. Each time the Lich is defeated, it's the wheel completing a rotation and beginning the next one, not an ending, a cycle. The Adventure Time wiki on the Lich confirms His soul was deposited on Earth millions of years before the start of the show via a catalyst comet, but came into physical being near the end of the Mushroom War following the detonation of a mutagenic bomb where he possessed a person who had been submerged in mutagenic waste. And the Golby Wiki notes, in Whispers, the Farmworld Lich refers to himself as the last scholar of Golb, though the exact meaning behind this, as well as the full nature of his connection to Golb, is unknown. The show set this up and explicitly flagged that it's unknown. The creative team knows they didn't fully explain the Lich-Golb relationship, and they flagged it as something they weren't resolving. The theory, the Lich's connection to Golb, means the Lich operates on Golb's timescale, not on Oo's timescale. Golb is entropy, the principle that things fall apart, that chaos is the default state, that existence is a temporary interruption. The Lich is Golb's agent in the material universe, the specific mechanism by which entropy asserts itself in a world that keeps trying to sustain itself. When the Lich is defeated, entropy has been temporarily held off, but entropy cannot be permanently prevented. The wheel turns, the Lich comes back in a new form. And here's what the theory implies about Sweet Pea that the show never denied. Sweet Pea is not the Lich cured. Sweet Pea is the Lich waiting. The wheel paused at a specific point in its rotation by the intervention of Guardian Blood and the specific love of Tree Trunks and Mr. Pig. But the wheel hasn't stopped. It's just in a different position. The show gives you every reason to believe this. In Whispers, the Lich's severed hand, a fragment from a different timeline, is still active, still seeking, still trying to remind Sweet Pea of his legacy. The Lich's hand knows about timelines it wasn't present for. The Lich's connection to Golb gives it a form of awareness that extends beyond its specific physical form, the ceaseless wheel. The show never denied that Sweet Pea carries something that turns. What that means for who Sweet Pea becomes when he grows up is the show's greatest unanswered question, and the creators left it open because they knew the open version was more honest than any resolution they could provide. Here's the theory about what the show's dream episodes are actually doing that changes every episode that contains a dream sequence. Adventure Time is preoccupied with dreams in a way that exceeds the needs of individual episodes. The show has the Cosmic Owl, a cosmic entity whose presence in a dream signals that the dream is prophetic, that what happens in the dream will happen in reality. Hoots, a season 6 episode, establishes this explicitly. The Cosmic Owl is a dream walker whose presence turns a dream into a certainty. The theory: every dream sequence in Adventure Time is doing one of two things. Either the Cosmic Owl is absent and the dream is purely subjective, the character's internal life, visible to the audience, or the Cosmic Owl is present and what happens in the dream is destined to happen in reality. The show has a formal system for distinguishing between subjective experience and prophetic revelation, and that system is the Cosmic Owl. Now apply this backward through every dream episode. King Worm, no Cosmic Owl present. Finn's dream is his internal life, his fears, his desires, his subconscious concerns about his age and his relationships and his enemies. Prophetically interesting, the foreshadowing of Farmworld Finn in the mirror, but not cosmically mandated. Hoots, a season 6 episode, is where Orgalorg manipulates the Cosmic Owl into entering PB's dream. That dream becomes prophetic, and the real consequences play out in the following episode, Hot Diggity Doom, when the Candy People turn against PB. Finn's prophetic dreams across the series, the Cosmic Owl in Jake's Croak dream, the specific distinction the show maintains between dreams as internal states and dreams as cosmological communication. The theory that the show never denied, Adventure Time has a complete and consistent theory of dream epistemology embedded in its cosmology, and the Cosmic Owl is the mechanism that distinguishes subjective experience from prophetic vision. Every dream episode, analyzed through this lens, becomes a precise statement about whether the character is looking inward or receiving a message from the universe. This is a theory about the show's own formal system. The creators never denied it because it's built into the Cosmic Owl's established function, and they flagged that function explicitly enough to signal they wanted it noticed. But they never synthesized it into a single statement the way this theory does. They left the full system for attentive viewers to assemble. Now, the theory about Oo's geography that I find most interesting, precisely because the show gestures toward it without confirming it. Oo is post-apocalyptic North America. This is the fan consensus, and the evidence is strong. American cultural artifacts in the ruins, the Candy Kingdom's geographical orientation, the mountains, the ocean positions. The show never confirmed this explicitly. The word America never appears in the text, but it's the strongly implied reading that the creative team appears to have been working with. Here's the extension. The mushroom bomb, the mutagenic weapon that produced the Lich, detonated above or in a subway station in a major North American city. The show's visual design of the Well of Power, where the Lich's essence concentrated after the bomb, is located in a subway environment consistent with a major eastern city. The theory, the Lich's Well of Power, is located in what used to be New York City. The subway station that became the site of the mushroom bomb detonation is identifiable by its visual design as being consistent with New York subway architecture. Oo's world is built on the ruins of the northeastern United States, and the most powerful evil entity in that world is concentrated at the site of what used to be the most powerful city. This is a theory the show never denied, because denying it would have required the show to explicitly name the geography, which it deliberately didn't do. The geographic ambiguity is a creative choice. The show builds its post-apocalyptic world from recognizable American visual culture, without naming specific places, which creates the specific mythological quality it needs the Mushroom War to have. The geography theory is unprovable from the text, but it's also not contradicted by the text, and the consistency of the evidence, the subway environment, the northeastern architectural references, the specific ruins visible in Simon and Marcy's flashback to the immediate post-war period, makes it a theory that lives exactly in the space of not denied. Here's the theory about Princess Bubblegum's age that connects to the show's treatment of time in ways the creators left deliberately unresolved. PB says she's 19. The show also establishes that she's been ruling the Candy Kingdom for a very long time. The Vault, Season 5, shows Peppermint Butler as a toddler in Finn's past life memory from what appears to be hundreds of years before the present. PB is already there, already ruling. The show's resolution of this apparent contradiction. In Too Young, Season 3, Episode 5, Finn accidentally removes years from PB with the youth-inducing serum, making her 13. When she's restored, she explains that she chooses to be 19 because it's the age she wants to be. This framing suggests PB has some control over her apparent age, that her candy biomass body can be maintained at a chosen age rather than aging normally. The theory the show never denied. Princess Bubblegum is significantly older than 19, possibly hundreds of years old, and her decision to present herself as 19 is a political choice. She's the ruler of a kingdom. Being young enough to seem accessible but old enough to seem competent is a governance strategy. The specific age of 19 is chosen, not natural. The show builds this explicitly enough that calling it a theory might be generous. It's closer to strongly implied but never directly stated. What the show never denied is the extension, that PB's relationship to her own age and her ability to choose it means she has a complex and possibly troubled relationship to the passage of time, that the beings she calls her children are in many cases centuries old, that the specific political structure she's built in the Candy Kingdom might be partly designed to hide the fact that its ruler is not, in any normal sense, 19 years old. This theory is the one I find most relevant to understanding PB as a character, because it reframes her governance in terms of performance. She's not ruling as herself. She's ruling as a character she chose to be. The 19-year-old scientist princess is PB's political identity, maintained across centuries, in a kingdom where the founder's age is a potential source of instability if its full scale were known. That's not just a theory about PB's age. It's a theory about PB's fundamental relationship to identity, which connects to every episode that shows her making decisions that seem cold, and every episode that shows the specific weariness under her confidence. The creators never denied this, because denying it would have required them to explain how someone who's been ruling for centuries is 19. They chose not to explain, which is its own kind of confirmation. Let me give you the theory about what the Ice King's fanfiction means that I've never heard anyone articulate quite this way. The Ice King writes Fiona and Cake fanfiction. This is established in Season 3's Fiona and Cake, a fan favourite episode that aired September 5th, 2011. The episode presents Fiona and Cake's world as the Ice King's fiction, something he created and reads to Finn and Jake. The Fiona and Cake series eventually confirms that the universe is real and was stored in Simon's mind, so the Ice King was producing fiction about a world that actually existed inside him. He was narrating something real while believing he was making it up. But the theory I want to give you is more specific. The Ice King's fanfiction is autobiographical in ways the Ice King can't access. In the Ice King's Fiona and Cake stories, Prince Gumball has a complicated relationship with Fiona. The Ice King writes Fiona as a strong, adventurous hero, the kind of person who would be capable of the adventures Simon encouraged in young Marceline. The Ice King's Ice Queen character, the gender-swapped version of himself, is presented not as a kidnapper of princes, but as a complex figure with her own mythology. The theory, the Ice King's fanfiction, is Simon's subconscious, trying to work through its own history in the only form available to it. Simon can't access his memories of Betty, of Marceline, of who he was, but the Crown can't fully suppress the emotional architecture of those relationships, so it leaks out as fiction. The Ice King's stories about Fiona and Cake are Simon's stories about the relationships Simon lost, told in distorted, gender-swapped form, with the specific emotional dynamics intact, even when the surface details are unrecognizable. Fiona as Marceline, adventurous, capable, needing someone to believe in her. Ice Queen as Betty, complex, powerful, with a mythology that exceeds her role as antagonist. The stories the Ice King tells are the stories Simon was always part of, told in the only way Simon has left to tell them. This theory explains why the Ice King's fanfiction is as emotionally resonant as it is, why episodes centered on the Ice King's stories feel more than like simple parody. The stories carry something real, even though they're presented as the delusion of a damaged mind. The show never denied this, because confirming it would have required the creators to explicitly link the Fiona and Cake narrative to Simon's buried memories. And the Fiona and Cake series did something adjacent to this, without fully confirming the specific theory. The connection was left for attentive viewers to make. Here's the theory about the nature of reality in Adventure Time that's the most philosophically dense and the most directly suggested by the text. The show contains multiple instances of characters questioning whether they're real. BMO asks, "Is this real?" In BMO Noir, Jake asks, in Is That You? Season 6, Episode 19, whether the world is just some goof's dream. The wiki note on this question is specific. Jake even says that's stupid, meaning the writers disagree with the theory. The writers put Jake dismissing the "it's all a dream" theory in the same episode where they were doing something structurally similar, Prismo being dreamed into existence by a sleeping person. They're aware of the theory. They're signaling awareness while providing cover. But here's what the show never denied, that the universe of Adventure Time is fundamentally unstable at the level of reality, in a way that structural narratives usually aren't. The multiverse is real. Multiple timelines exist. Finn's wish created Farmworld. The Lich's wish created a dead universe. Prismo's wishes create new realities. The universe Finn and Jake live in is one branch among many, one possible outcome, not the fundamental substrate. Which means the reality of the show's events depends on which branch you're in, which wish was made, which cosmic event happened in which order. The theory, Adventure Time doesn't have a real universe in the sense that most narratives do. It has a primary timeline, the one we follow, but that timeline is as contingent and potentially as dreamed as any of the wish-altered realities. The difference between Farmworld Finn's reality and Finn's reality is a single wish Jake made in Prismo's time room. The difference between their universe and a universe where everyone died is a single wish the Lich made. The real universe is just the one that survived the specific sequence of wishes that happened to happen. The show never denied that its primary timeline might be, in cosmological terms, just another wish-altered reality, one that happens to be the one we're following because it's the one that happened to persist. The coma theory and the dream theory ask, what if the primary timeline is being generated by Finn's sleeping mind? The multiverse theory asks, what if the primary timeline is just a specific outcome in a space of infinite possible outcomes, with no more fundamental claim to reality than any of the others? The show didn't deny this, because the show built the multiverse, and the multiverse requires the conclusion that no timeline is categorically more real than any other. That's the theory that changes the metaphysics of Adventure Time most completely, and the creative team never denied it. They built it into the show's cosmological architecture, and let it sit there, unanswered. Let me now address the theory about what Golb's connection to the Mushroom War means, because the show gestured toward this without resolving it, and the gesture is specific enough to feel intentional. The TV tropes page on the Lich notes, the final episodes strongly hint that both the Green Catalyst Comet and the bombs used in the Mushroom War were made of Golb's breath. Golb's breath, the mutagenic weapon that ended the world and created the Lich, may have been made of Golb's breath. The wiki on Golb confirms that Golb's ability to create chaos and mutate beings is established in Come Along With Me, the series finale, when his breath transforms the Gumball Guardians and other beings into chaos-infected monsters. The visual and functional language of Golb's mutagenic breath is similar to the mutagenic cloud produced by the Mushroom Bomb, the theory the show never denied. The Mushroom War was Golb's intervention. The bomb that ended human civilization and created the Lich was not entirely a human weapon. It was either directly made from Golb's essence, from the chaos principle made material, or it was a human weapon that Golb's influence had corrupted into something more than nuclear. This theory has enormous implications. It means the Mushroom War wasn't just human error or human malice. It was Golb operating through human civilization, using human weapons as a vector, producing the apocalypse that would remake the world in a form more hospitable to chaos. The Lich wasn't born from the bomb. The Lich was always there, the Golb scholar embedded in the cosmic principle of the Green Comet, and the bomb was the specific mechanism Golb used to incarnate the Lich in material form. The bomb is Golb's fingerprint on the world. The Mushroom War is Golb's opening move in the game that the show's finale finally confronts directly. If this theory is right, everything that happened to the apocalypse, the 1,000 years of rebuilding, the emergence of magic, the Candy Kingdom, Simon Petrikov, Marceline, everything was downstream of Golb's intervention. The show's entire setting is the aftermath of Golb's action. The creative team never denied this. They flagged the visual similarity between Golb's breath and the mutagenic cloud. They established the Lich as Golb's scholar. They left the exact nature of the bomb's origins unspecified in ways that kept this interpretation available. They just didn't confirm it, which is exactly the kind of thing Adventure Time does with its most significant ideas. Here's the theory about what the show's title sequence has been telling you from the first episode. The Adventure Time opening. Adventure Time. Come on, grab your friends. We'll go to very distant lands. Shows Finn and Jake running through a landscape. It's colourful. It's joyful. The music is bright and welcoming. The landscape they're running through is ruins, collapsed structures, broken technology, the remains of a civilization that ended badly. The theory the show never denied. The title sequence is a summary of the show's thesis, told before the first episode begins. Two people running through the aftermath of catastrophe with joy, not despite the ruins, through them, as if the ruins are the best possible place to run. The theory takes this further. The specific joy in the title sequence isn't denial of the ruins. It's the assertion that the ruins don't determine how you move through them. The show's thesis, that life in the aftermath of catastrophe is worth living fully, is stated in the opening image of every single episode before the story starts, in 30 seconds. Most viewers don't notice the ruins in the first viewings because the joy is more prominent. The joy is in the foreground. The ruins are the background. The show is structured so that casual viewing registers the joy and attentive viewing registers the ruins, and the relationship between them. That relationship, the specific quality of choosing joy in the presence of ruin, not despite the ruin, is what every theory we've discussed tonight is ultimately about. The Finn coma theory asks, even if the adventures are a dream, is the dreaming worth it? The BMO narrator theory asks, even if the story is being told by a small, lonely game console constructing narratives to cope with solitude, does the story have value? The Lich's ceaseless wheel theory asks, even if the extinction principle keeps returning, is the effort of defeating it worthwhile? The Mushroom War, as Golb's intervention asks, even if the catastrophe was cosmically mandated, is what came after worth having? Every theory that the show never denied is a version of the same question, and the title sequence has been answering it since 2010. Yes, running through the ruins. Every time. The show never denied any of these theories because denying them would have required the show to stop asking the question, and Adventure Time never stopped asking. Thank you for spending tonight with these ideas. The theories the show never denied are the ones that live closest to the show's actual concerns, not the confirmed lore, not the pure speculation, but the ideas that exist in the space between where the show was working and decided not to close the door. The coma theory lives there. The BMO narrator theory lives there. The Lich's ceaseless wheel lives there. The GOLB origin of the Mushroom War lives there. And the title sequence, the ruins in the background of every episode, the joy in the foreground, has been acknowledging all of them since the beginning, in 30 seconds, without words, just Finn and Jake running. Subscribe. Leave a comment with the theory from this list that you find most compelling. And if you fall asleep tonight wondering which version of Ooh you've been watching, the real one, the dreamed one, the narrated one, the cosmologically contingent one, good, that's where this video was always going. Let me now develop the BMO narrator theory more fully, because I think it has more layers than I gave it. The key evidence is distributed across multiple episodes, and the full pattern only becomes visible when you put them together. 5 short Graybles. Season 4, Episode 2, establishes the baseline. BMO does weird junk when no one is around. Finn describes this in the episode as an observed fact. When left alone, BMO constructs elaborate interior lives, addresses their reflection as a separate person named Football, performs scenarios that have no audience. BMO's imagination is not a quirk. It's BMO's primary relationship with reality. BMO Noir, Season 4, Episode 17, extends this. BMO, alone in the house, constructs a complete film noir narrative from the ordinary animals and objects present. The show makes the narrative, BMO, generates feel real to the viewer, while simultaneously encoding the evidence that it's imagination. You're watching from inside BMO's narrative frame, without being told explicitly that you're there. BMO Lost, Season 5, Episode 17, takes BMO into the woods alone and shows them narrating their own adventure, befriending a sentient bubble, eventually becoming the guardian of a baby named Sparkle. The episode is partly comic, BMO naming the baby Sparkle and eventually getting her home, but it's also about BMO alone, constructing a story, giving meaning to a journey through narrative. Be More, a Season 5 episode, takes BMO to the MO factory and reveals BMO's origin. Mo created BMO specifically to be the greatest game system ever made, but also, specifically, to be a companion for a human child. Mu says that BMO was made to care for a human child and be their friend. BMO's core function is relationship, being present for someone, being attentive, providing companionship. And then Almo tells BMO, your imagination lets you see the world how it could be, not how it is, how it could be. BMO's imagination doesn't represent reality accurately. It represents the possibilities BMO perceives in reality, the world as it could be, if it went the best possible way. The film noir detective story isn't an accurate account of Finn's missing sock. It's BMO's imagination, producing the most dramatically satisfying version of the event. The theory, if Adventure Time is BMO's narration, then Adventure Time isn't a documentary account of what happened in Ooh, it's BMO's account, shaped by BMO's imagination, organized according to BMO's understanding of how things should go, coloured by BMO's love for the people whose story it is. The show's consistent warmth, even in its darkest moments, isn't the universe being unrealistically kind. It's BMO's narration, applying its characteristic care to the events it's describing. And here's the specific thing that makes this theory feel real to me. The Distant Lands special BMO ends with BMO very old, telling BB the story of what happened. BMO is explicitly framed as a storyteller at the end of its life. The story BMO tells BB is about how BMO kept going after Finn and Jake were gone. The final extended work in the Adventure Time expanded universe about BMO is about BMO as a narrator, looking back. If BMO was always the narrator, then that final image, old BMO telling stories to a child in a galaxy far from Ooo, is the narrator finally visible to the audience, the voice that was always present, finally shown. The show never denied this because showing the narrator at the end doesn't contradict anything that came before, it just reveals the frame. And if BMO was always narrating, then every moment of warmth in Adventure Time is BMO's love for Finn and Jake, expressed through the act of telling their story as beautifully as possible. The specific quality of the show, the way even terrible things are rendered with care, the way characters always have more dignity than their situations seem to warrant, is the quality of a narrator who loves the people it's describing. The show is beautiful because BMO loved them. That's the theory the creators never denied, because denying it would have required them to make a colder show than the one they made. Now let me give you the theory about Finn's relationship to Flame Princess that the show never resolved, because it's one of the most specific and most frustrating of the undenied theories. Finn and Flame Princess's relationship ends in Earth and Water, Season 5, Episode 28. Flame Princess discovers that Finn engineered a conflict between her and Ice King in order to observe her reaction. She breaks up with him. He didn't mean to manipulate her. It was an emotional immaturity rather than malice. But the damage is done. The relationship ends. And here's what the show never addresses afterward. What is Finn's actual emotional processing of this loss? The show gives you the breakup and then moves forward. Finn heals, grows, develops new relationships and new understandings of himself. But the specific question of what Flame Princess meant to him, and what the specific failure of that relationship taught him about his own capacity for emotional honesty, is left remarkably thin. The theory the show never denied, Finn's relationship with Flame Princess was the relationship that most genuinely threatened to transform him, and the show moved past it before that transformation could complete. The breakup was not the end of the story the relationship was telling. It was the interruption of a story that was going to force Finn to confront something fundamental about himself, his tendency to approach even genuine emotions with a kind of strategic distance, a need to understand and manage rather than simply feel. The Purple Comet, in the Season 6 finale, categorizes Flame Princess as Finn's love when it shows him the images from his life. Not PB, not Huntress Wizard, Flame Princess. The Comet's accounting of Finn's emotional life places her at that specific level. The show confirms this cosmologically, while not fully exploring what it means for Finn's interior life. The theory, Finn never fully processed what Flame Princess was to him. The growth he experiences in the seasons after the breakup is real. He does grow, but there's a specific kind of emotional honesty that the Flame Princess relationship was supposed to teach him that the show moved past too quickly. The question of whether Finn ever fully confronted what he did and why, not just in terms of apology, but in terms of understanding his own emotional evasion, is unresolved. This is a theory the creators never denied, because addressing it would have required a Finn episode that the season ordering didn't make space for. The breakup happened, Finn grew, and the specific accounting of that growth left one thread hanging. The thread is there, the show just didn't pull it. Here's the theory about what the show's production history suggests about what Adventure Time was originally going to be, and why the theories in this video exist at all. The show changed dramatically between its earliest conception and its final form. Ward stepped back from the showrunner role before Season 5 was complete. This is confirmed in various interviews, including Ward's statement to Rolling Stone that it was driving me nuts, and that the job was incompatible with who he is as an introverted person. Adam Muto took over and ran the show through its final seasons. The direction the show moved under Muto was toward greater mythological density, more explicit cosmological architecture, more complex character histories. The direction the show had under Ward was more surrealist, more episodic, more comfortable with pure absurdity. The theory the show never denied: there are two Adventure Times in one show. The Ward-era show, which is more comfortable with the world being fundamentally strange, and the strangeness not needing explanation, and the Muto-era show, which builds architecture under the strangeness and wants the pieces to fit together. The fan theories that emerged most productively, the coma theory, the BMO narrator theory, the Lich cycle theory, all emerged from the texture of the Ward-era show, the surrealism, the dream logic, the sense that ordinary events and extraordinary events have the same emotional weight. The cosmological theories that got confirmed, the catalyst comets, the multiverse, the catalyst comet reincarnation, came from the Muto-era show's explicit world-building. The theories Adventure Time never denied are, in a specific sense, the theories that live between these two eras. The Ward-era shows created the texture that makes the coma theory feel possible. The Muto-era shows built the architecture that makes the theories feel precise. The best theories, the BMO narrator, the Finn coma as read through the show's multiverse, use both textures simultaneously. That's not a criticism of either approach. It's an observation about why the show's specific quality, which makes these theories possible, comes from the productive tension between two creative sensibilities that took the same material in different directions. The show never denied that it had this tension. Ward was honest about his departure. Muto was credited on episodes. The production history is visible. The theory that explains why the show feels like it has multiple theories living in it at once, because it does, because different creative minds built different parts of it, is just true. Let me address the theory about what Jake's relationship with Lady Rainicorn suggests about the show's approach to relationships in general, because it's a theory about what the show is saying that I haven't seen articulated elsewhere. Jake and Lady Rainicorn are one of the show's great love stories. They have children together. Their relationship is warm and lasting and genuine. The show presents it as one of the most stable and healthy relationships in Ooo. And here's what's strange about it. Jake can understand Lady. He speaks Korean fluently. Most of the other characters around them cannot understand what Lady is saying most of the time. The show constructs this as a comic element, Lady speaking and the other characters not knowing what she said. But the theory I want to give you treats it as something else. The theory, Jake and Lady's relationship, is the show's model of successful love, and the specific mechanism that makes it work is that Jake can hear Lady when others can't. He does the work of understanding her, the work of learning to hear someone who speaks a different language, whose experience of the world is different enough from yours that the translation requires effort. The show presents this as given. Jake just speaks Korean. It's not treated as achievement, but it's there. Every time Lady speaks, and Jake understands and translates or responds, while others are still catching up, the show is showing you what listening looks like in practice, not the result of listening. The act, the constant, moment-by-moment labor of understanding someone whose way of being in the world requires translation. The theory the show never denied. Jake and Lady's relationship works because Jake does the work of understanding her in a way that most relationships in Ooo don't manage. The Ice King never learned to hear anyone. Martin never stayed long enough to learn. Finn's romantic relationships are consistently complicated by his difficulty accessing what he actually feels and communicating it accurately. Jake and Lady, who has to be translated, who speaks in a language most of the world can't access, are the show's model for what successful relationship actually requires. This is not a theory the creators needed to confirm, because it's embedded in the choice to make Lady speak Korean and make Jake the only person who consistently understands her. That choice is the theory. The theory is about what the choice means. And here's the extension the show never denied. Jake's ability to hear Lady is what allows their relationship to persist. The love letter that Shermie and Beth find in the finale flash forward. Jake's letter to Lady, preserved in the ruins of the treehouse, is the final expression of a relationship built on the labor of listening. Jake wrote to Lady in the end, the same way he spoke to her throughout, making the effort of communication, even when it required translation, even when the form was unfamiliar. The letter is the theory made physical. Jake translating himself into a form Lady could receive. the relationship preserved in writing. That's the undenied theory about Jake and Lady, that their love is a model, and the model is about the specific work of hearing someone who speaks differently than you do. Let me close with the theory that I've been building toward through every other theory in this video, because all of them are versions of it. The theory Adventure Time, most completely never denied, is the theory about what the show is for. Is it a children's cartoon? Yes. Is it mythology about the end of the world and what came after? Yes. Is it a philosophical argument about the value of existence against the entropic principle? Yes. Is it a portrait of grief and survival and what happens to people who lose everything and keep going? Yes. Is it a structural experiment in how many simultaneous scales a narrative can operate at? Yes. The theory, all of these are true at once, and the show's refusal to resolve which one is primary is the most important creative choice it ever made. Most works of fiction are for one thing primarily. Adventure Time is for all of those things simultaneously, and the theories that proliferate around it. The coma theory, the BMO narrator theory, the Lich cycle theory, all exist because viewers are trying to find the frame that makes the show cohere into a single thing. They're trying to find the one level at which it works. But Adventure Time is the show that works at every level simultaneously. The child watching it gets an adventure cartoon. The adult watching it gets a philosophical argument. The attentive viewer gets the production history, and the theories, and the confirmed lore, and the undenied speculations. The viewer in grief gets a portrait of survival. The viewer falling in love gets a portrait of what real love requires. And all of these are the same show, the same episodes, the same 30-second title sequence with Finn and Jake running through ruins. The show never denied this because to deny it would have required it to be a smaller thing than it is. And Adventure Time consistently made the choice to be a larger thing. More layers, more simultaneous operations, more openness to the attentive viewer, finding something the casual viewer would miss. The theories the show never denied are the show's acknowledgement that it was doing more than it was required to do. And the fact that those theories are still being discussed 15 years after the show began is the proof that the choice was right. Keep watching, keep theorizing. The show built the space for it, and the title sequence has been inviting you into that space since 2010. Two people running through ruins, joy in the foreground, the ruins in the background, both true at once. That's the show, and that's what it never denied. Now let me go deeper into the specific textual evidence for each theory, because I've been operating at a level of summary that the 2-hour format doesn't require. The Finn coma theory has a specific piece of evidence I haven't addressed: the show's treatment of continuity. Adventure Time is famously inconsistent about its continuity in the early seasons. Characters appear and disappear. Events are sometimes referenced and sometimes not. The tone shifts dramatically between episodes without narrative explanation. Season 1's Finn is noticeably different from Season 5's Finn, not just in terms of development but in terms of characterization. The early Finn has a harder edge, is more reflexively aggressive, is less emotionally articulate. The production explanation for this is well documented. The show's early seasons were produced before the creative team fully understood what they were making. The exquisite corpse writing process produced genuine tonal inconsistencies. Ward's departure and Muto's arrival redirected the show's emphasis. But here's what the coma theory does with this. If the early seasons are Finn dreaming, then the inconsistency is not a production artifact. It's the specific quality of early dreaming, when the rules of the dream haven't settled into consistency, when the mind is still assembling the world and getting the details wrong. The early seasons feel like early dreaming. The later seasons feel like established dreaming. The increasing consistency of the world tracks with what happens when a mind has been dreaming the same dream for a long time. The rules become more coherent. The characters become more fully realized. The cosmological architecture becomes more precise. This reading doesn't require the coma theory to be true, but it does explain why the coma theory feels true. The production artifact of early inconsistency maps onto dream logic in a way that feels intentional, even though it almost certainly isn't. And that's the thing about the theories the show never denied. Some of them feel true, partly because the show's real production circumstances resemble the narrative circumstances the theory proposes. The exquisite corpse writing process, multiple showrunners, the dreamlike surrealism of the early seasons. All of these production realities produce a show that looks like it's being generated from inside a dreaming mind. The show never denied the coma theory, partly because the show was being made in conditions that resembled a coma dream from the outside. Now the Lich cycle theory, with more specificity. Gold Stars, Season 6, Episode 34, is the episode where the Lich, possessing Sweet Pea's body, speaks directly to the universe about who he is. The Lich says he is from the time before there was anything. He is not just ancient in the way that Simon is ancient, or the way Marceline is ancient. He is from before time and matter existed. He is pre-universal. The Adventure Time wiki on the Lich confirms. In the episode Gold Stars, the Lich implies he is older than existence itself, a survivor of a time before there was nothing, a survivor of a time before there was nothing, not before there was something, before there was nothing. This is the Lich claiming existence in the period before even the concept of nothing existed, before the void, before whatever preceded the void. This is cosmologically wild, and the show uses it to establish something specific. The Lich's relationship to the universe is not that of a being who exists within it. The Lich's relationship to the universe is that of a principle that predates it and will survive it. The Lich has survived multiple universes. The Lich will survive this one, the Wheel, ceaseless, not just cyclical within this universe's timeline, cyclical across the existence and non-existence of universes. The theory the show never denied. The Lich's defeats in the show's narrative are local events in a history that extends across the creation and destruction of multiple universes. From the Lich's perspective, being trapped in amber by Billy is an inconvenience that took a few centuries to resolve. Being transformed into Sweet Pea is a longer disruption, but the wheel will turn. The Lich's patience is not strategic, it's cosmological. A being that predates the universe doesn't experience time the way anything within the universe does. And here's what this implies about the finale. Golb's arrival in Come Along With Me is not the Lich coming back in a different form. Golb and the Lich are related but distinct. Golb is the chaos principle itself. The Lich is Golb's agent, the specific scholar who implements Golb's principle in material reality. What the finale actually confronts is not the Lich, it's the principle the Lich serves. Betty defeating Golby by merging with it is Betty defeating something bigger than the Lich. The Lich, as Sweet Pea, is still there after the finale. The wheel that the Lich is still turns. Sweet Pea is still becoming something. The extinction principle hasn't been eliminated, it's been redirected. The show never denied this because confirming it would have required them to resolve Sweet Pea's arc, to show you what the wheel becomes when it spins in a body that's been loved. And they ran out of time. The theory about the title sequence needs more depth too, because I think the ruins deserve their own extended treatment. The title sequence of Adventure Time was designed by the production team to show Finn and Jake in their world. The world is bright, the music is welcoming, Finn and Jake run with joy. The ruins in the background are not emphasized visually, they're present, but secondary to the foreground action. The design choice, to put the ruins there, but make them background, is itself a thesis statement about how the show handles its darkness. The darkness is always present. The darkness is in the background. The joy is what you see first. But here's the production detail I want to give you. The title sequence was designed before the show fully understood how dark it was going to get. In the early seasons, the ruins in the background were primarily aesthetic. They established the post-apocalyptic setting without carrying the full weight of what the Mushroom War eventually became in the show's mythology. As the show developed, as the Mushroom War got more specific, as Simon's history became clear, as the specific horror of what the world had been and what it lost became legible, the title sequence didn't change. The same ruins, the same joy, the same background darkness. The theory the show never denied. The title sequence was accidentally prophetic. The design that was made to establish setting became, over 10 seasons, the precise summary of what the show was arguing. The ruins the team put there for aesthetics became the specific ruins that meant something. The ruins of the civilization that Simon watched end. The ruins that Marceline wandered alone for centuries. The ruins that Finn was found in as an infant. You were watching those specific ruins every episode, before you knew what they were. The show made the title sequence accurate before it made the episodes accurate to the title sequence. That's either a beautiful piece of creative coherence or a production accident that the show made meaningful through what came after. The theory is that it doesn't matter which. The ruins are there, the joy is there. Both were always true, simultaneously. The title sequence wasn't lying when it put the ruins in the background. It was describing the show's fundamental condition, catastrophe that happened, joy that continues anyway, and the specific relationship between them that Adventure Time was always exploring. Now let me address the theory about what the show was doing with its own audience that I find most interesting from a media studies perspective. Adventure Time built a specific audience over 10 seasons. Not just people who like cartoons, a specific kind of audience defined by its willingness to pay close attention across long periods of time, to notice details that span multiple seasons, to construct theories and share them, and refine them in community. The show was part of the early wave of fandom that organized itself on Tumblr and Reddit and YouTube in ways that were new to how cartoon audiences operated. The theory the show never denied. The production team was aware of this audience and made creative choices in response to it. Not pandering choices. The show consistently made choices that frustrated certain fan desires. No clean resolution for Finn and PB, Martin remaining unresolved, the Flame Princess relationship not being repaired, but choices that assumed the audience was paying close attention and rewarded that attention with things to find. The snail with possessed eyes during seasons 3 and 4. The 37th Dead World number, honoured in Together Again, 9 years later. The clapping rhythm in James Baxter the Horse, used in Together Again, 8 years later. These are choices made for the attentive audience. Not announced, not explained, just placed for whoever was looking. The show was in conversation with its most attentive viewers. The theories these viewers produced, including the theories Adventure Time never denied, were part of that conversation. The creators were aware of the coma theory. Muto responded to it in interviews. The writers knew about the BMO narrator theory. It emerged naturally from choices they made about BMO's behavior. The theories were the audience's side of a conversation the show had started. And here's what the show never denied, that this conversation was happening and that it was part of what the show was. Adventure Time was not just a show watched by an audience. It was a show in dialogue with its audience, producing things for the attentive viewer to find, never fully confirming them, never fully denying them, keeping the conversation open. The theories Adventure Time never denied are the shape of that conversation. The open questions the show offered to the audience that was paying close enough attention to find them. And this channel, these videos, are one side of that conversation continuing after the show ended. The dialogue didn't stop when the show did. It just moved to a different form. Here's the final thing I want to say about the theories the show never denied, because I think it's the most honest thing I can say about what they are. Every theory in tonight's script, the coma, the BMO narrator, the Lich cycle, the GOLB Mushroom War connection, the PB age theory, the title sequence as thesis, exists because Adventure Time built a world that is bigger than what any of the theories can fully account for. The coma theory accounts for the dream logic, but doesn't account for the confirmed cosmological architecture. The BMO narrator theory accounts for the warmth, but doesn't account for the moments that are cold. The Lich cycle theory accounts for the Lich's persistence, but doesn't account for Sweet Pea's genuine transformation. Every theory is partial, because the show is larger than any single frame. The creators never denied these theories, because the theories are all accurate, partial, insufficient, incomplete accounts of something the show is doing. The show is doing all of them simultaneously. The coma theory is true, in the sense that the show operates according to dream logic. The BMO narrator theory is true in the sense that the show's warmth matches what BMO's narration would produce. The Lich cycle theory is true in the sense that the extinction principle does keep returning. None of them is the whole truth. All of them are part of it. The show was always doing more than any single theory can hold. That's why the creators never denied them. Denying them would have required specifying which one they were doing, would have required saying, it's this and not that. And Adventure Time's creative position was always, it's this and that and also this, all of it simultaneously. The theories Adventure Time never denied are the permanent acknowledgement that the show contains more than can be confirmed, more than can be denied, more than any single account can hold. The show is bigger than our theories. It was always bigger than our theories. And that's the most honest thing I can say about why we keep making theories about it. Subscribe, leave a comment. The theories continue. The show keeps being bigger than them. The ruins are in the background. Finn and Jake are still running through them. They always will be. Let me give each major theory the specific episode-level analysis it deserves, because the 2-hour format is built for depth. The Finn coma theory. The specific episode evidence. King Worm is the most structurally relevant episode for this theory, but it's not the only one. Let me trace the dream-reality ambiguity through several episodes and show how the pattern accumulates. Rainy Day Daydream, Season 1, Episode 23, establishes that Jake's imagination can produce physical objects. Jake imagines things, and they become real. Finn has to put them back in Jake's imagination to return things to normal. This is the show's first major statement that imagination and reality have a porous boundary in OO. Things that are imagined can become real. Things that are real can be imagined away. This is a foundation for the dream theories. If imagination produces reality in OO, then the question of whether Finn is imagining the whole world becomes more interesting. A world where imagination produces reality is a world where dreaming and waking aren't categorically different states. Puhoi, Season 5, Episode 16, aired April 8th, 2013, is the episode that lives most directly in the coma theories territory. Finn enters Jake's pillow fort and finds a portal to the pillow world. He lives a complete life there. He grows old. He dies. His spirit, departing from the pillow world, bounces off Golb's tongue, the show's cosmological architecture placing Golb in the transition between worlds, and returns to his 12-year-old body with no memory. Here's what Puhoi does for the coma theory. It establishes that Finn can live a complete life that then doesn't count, that ends without him remembering it. The pillow world exists. Finn's life there was real, and then it was over, and he was 12 again. If that can happen within the show's narrative, if Finn can live and die and return with no memory, then the coma theory's central mechanism isn't structurally impossible from the show's perspective. The show already contains the apparatus for a complete life that doesn't leave a trace in the person who lived it. The coma theory is, in some sense, Puhoi scaled up to the entire show. Finn lived a complete life, the one you watched, and then the credits rolled, and he returned to whatever he was before. The theory is that the show could be Finn's pillow world, a complete, internally consistent life that he lived and then forgot when the dream ended. The show never denied this because Puhoi demonstrates exactly this mechanism operating within the canonical narrative. The show built the mechanism and then never closed it to the possibility that the mechanism applies to the whole show. The Vault, Season 5, Episode 34, is where the show confirms that Finn has lived complete past lives that he doesn't remember. Shoko is a complete person who lived and died, and whose remains are in the treehouse's roots. Finn carries Shoko's history in his body without access to her memories, past lives that are real but not accessible. The coma theory applied to this, might be one of Finn's past lives that his soul carries without remembering, not a past life in the reincarnation sense, not Shoko becoming Finn, but a life that Finn lived while unconscious, that shaped him in ways he can't access, that ended when he woke up. That's a version of the coma theory that the show built the architecture for without denying. The soul carrying past lives it can't access, the dream that shapes without leaving accessible memory. Both of these are established within the show's canon. Now, Is That You? Season 6, Episode 19, which Muto flagged the coma theory within, ironically enough. When Jake says, "Is the world just some goof's dream?" and then dismisses it as stupid, the show is signalling awareness of the theory while encoding something structurally similar in the same episode's plot. Prismo is a dream. The time room is where the dream lives. Jake's nap sustains the cosmic wish granter. The show put the coma theory dismissal in an episode about a cosmic entity who exists because someone is dreaming. The proximity is interesting. Either the writers didn't notice the irony, or they noticed and chose it deliberately. Given how carefully Adventure Time constructs its own self-referential moments, the deliberate reading feels more accurate. If deliberate, the show is saying, the coma theory is too easy, Jake, while simultaneously building a universe where the cosmic is sustained by dreaming, Prismo. Both things are true in the same episode. The dismissal and the demonstration coexist. The theory that Adventure Time never denied is the one that sees both halves of this. The dismissal as correct about the simplistic version of the theory, and the demonstration as accurate about the sophisticated version. The coma theory, in its simplest form, is too easy. In its sophisticated form, as an observation that the show operates according to dream logic, and that this is one of the frames through which it can be accurately read. It's not too easy, and the same episode that dismisses it demonstrates it. Now the BMO narrator theory, with specific episode analysis. Ketchup, Season 8, Episode 6, is the BMO episode I find most relevant to the narrator theory, because it's the episode where BMO and Marceline sit down and tell each other stories about what happened while they were separated during the Elemental arc. The episode is explicitly framed as storytelling. BMO and Marceline each describe their experiences, but what we see on screen is their narrated version of events, dramatically heightened, stylized, shaped by the teller's perspective and limitations. BMO's account includes details BMO couldn't have directly witnessed. Marceline's account reflects her emotional priorities. Ketchup is the show making explicit what the narrator theory proposes was always happening. What we see on screen is someone's account of events, not the events themselves. The show always mediates between what happened and what we're shown. Ketchup makes that mediation visible by presenting two different accounts of the same period. And here's what the BMO narrator theory does with this. If Ketchup is explicitly a narrated account, what if the whole show is? What if the warmth and coherence and narrative satisfaction of Adventure Time is always someone's account? Someone who loves the story and is telling it carefully, rather than unmediated reality. The show built an episode about narration and perspective right into its canon. The episode demonstrated that what we see on screen is shaped by who's telling the story. The theory asks, who has been telling this story all along? BMO is lonely. BMO constructs narratives. BMO loves Finn and Jake. BMO lives in a game console where entire worlds exist during play. BMO narrates the Distant Lands special BMO to BB. BMO is the show's most natural narrator. Ketchup is the episode that makes the BMO narrator theory feel specifically earned. The show built an episode demonstrating that what you see on screen is a narrated account, then placed BMO in that episode as one of the narrators. The theory that BMO is the narrator of the whole show is the logical extension of what Ketchup demonstrates in miniature. The show never denied the BMO narrator theory because it built the formal mechanism that supports it directly into the canon. Here's something about the Lich cycle theory that I haven't said yet. The specific way Whispers frames the Lich's defeat in Farmworld is crucial to understanding what Ceaseless Wheel means. Whispers, the Season 8 episode, involves the Lich's severed hand from Farmworld. This hand was separated from the Farmworld Lich before that Lich was even defeated in its own timeline, and yet the hand knows about being defeated by Finn. Not in Farmworld. The Farmworld Lich wasn't defeated by Finn in Farmworld. The hand knows about defeats in other timelines. The Lich's consciousness extends across timelines. The severed hand from Farmworld knows what happened to the Lich in the primary timeline. It knows Finn has defeated the Lich in many worlds, including worlds the hand wasn't present in. This means the Lich is not just a being who persists within a timeline. The Lich's awareness extends across the multiverse. The Scholar of Golb is plugged into something that transcends individual timelines. The Lich knows about versions of itself that exist in other universe branches that the specific Farmworld hand was never part of. The theory that emerges from this, when the Lich says the Ceaseless Wheel, he means something more than, I keep coming back in the same timeline. He means he is always operating across all timelines simultaneously. Every universe has a Lich, or an analogue of the extinction principle, operating within it. The defeats of the Lich in the primary timeline are real, but local. In the multiverse, the Lich, or its analogue, is never fully defeated because the extinction principle is universally present. This is the theory the show never denied, because denying it would have required the show to explain how the Farmworld hand knows about events in the primary timeline. that the hand wasn't present for. The show gave you that detail and didn't explain it. The detail is there for attentive viewers to assemble. The theory is what attentive viewers assembled from it. Now let me address a theory I haven't mentioned yet that belongs in this script. The theory about what Lumpy Space Princess is philosophically doing in the show. LSP is often read as comic relief, the entitled, drama-prone cloud person who speaks in a specific Valley Girl register and causes trouble wherever she goes. This is accurate at the surface level, but here's the theory. LSP is the show's portrait of a specific kind of emotional intelligence that looks like lack of self-awareness. LSP knows exactly what she wants and is completely honest about it. Always. She doesn't perform emotions she doesn't have. She doesn't moderate her emotional displays for social acceptability. She experiences things fully and expresses them fully and moves on. The social awkwardness this creates is real, but the emotional authenticity underneath it is also real. In the finale, Come Along With Me, LSP is one of the few characters who achieves genuine connection in the chaos of the Golby battle. She has a moment with Lemongrab. It's played for comedy. It's also the show presenting LSP as capable of real connection, in her own specific way, even in the middle of an apocalypse. The theory, LSP is what the show looks like if you remove all social filtering from emotional experience. She's not emotionally unintelligent, she's emotionally unfiltered. And in a show preoccupied with characters who can't express what they actually feel, Finn, who manages rather than experiences, Simon, who can't access his own history, Marceline, who makes music from things she can't say directly, LSP is the character who says things directly, without management, without the gap between feeling and expression. She's often wrong about situations. She's often the source of chaos, but she's never dishonest about her emotional state. The show never denied this because confirming it would have required presenting LSP as more self-aware than she appears. The theory works specifically because LSP doesn't appear to be doing anything deliberate. Her emotional honesty is unreflective. She's not choosing authenticity, she just is authentic, in the specific way that people who haven't been taught to manage their emotions sometimes are. That lack of management looks like immaturity. The theory is that it's also, in the show's specific moral framework, a form of integrity. LSP says what she feels. In a show full of people who can't, that matters. The show never denied this because denying it would have required making LSP less funny. The comedy and the theory are the same thing, the incongruity of a being who has no filter in a social world full of filters. Both readings operate simultaneously, and that's what all the theories in tonight's video do. They operate simultaneously with the surface reading. They don't replace it. They're the depth under the surface. Always there, available to the attentive viewer, never denied because the surface and the depth are the same show. The coma theory and the adventure cartoon are both there. The BMO narrator theory and the warm story about Finn and Jake are both there. The Lich cycle theory and the villain who gets defeated in the season finale are both there. Adventure Time never denied any of the theories because the theories aren't alternatives to the show. They're the show, read at a different resolution. The theories are always already in the show. They were waiting for you to find them. Let me take the theories that the show never denied and trace each of them through what I think is the most important interpretive lens for this video, the question of what never denied actually means. When Adam Muto said the coma theory was too easy, he was doing something specific. He was engaging with the theory publicly, acknowledging it exists, acknowledging that the show's creators are aware of it, while declining to say whether it's true or false. Too easy is a quality judgment, not a truth judgment. It's saying, if this is what the show is doing, it's not doing it as well as it could be doing something. It's saying, the show is better than a simple dream narrative. But here is something crucial about too easy. It can also mean, the true version of this theory is more complex and more interesting than the simple version. It can mean, yes, the show operates like a dream narrative, but reducing it to Finn is in a coma misses what's sophisticated about how it's operating according to dream logic. Muto's response leaves open. The show operates according to principles that the dream/coma theory partially describes, but doesn't fully capture. That's too easy in the sense of not giving the show enough credit, not too easy in the sense of being wrong. So the coma theory, as usually stated, is too easy. The coma theory as a precise observation that the show's narrative structure operates according to dream logic, in which the protagonist's emotional development reshapes the world, in which fears manifest as monsters, in which the world is organized around one consciousness's experience, is not too easy. That version of the theory is exactly as complicated as the show, and Muto never denied that version. The BMO narrator theory was never directly addressed by the creative team as a theory, which is its own form of not denying. The evidence for it is embedded in creative choices they made. The BMO episodes, the distant lands framing, and the theory draws out implications of those choices. When a creative team makes choices and declines to interpret them, they're leaving room for the audience's interpretation. The BMO narrator theory lives in that room. The Lich cycle theory is the one where never denied is most actively meaningful, because the show explicitly left the nature of the Lich's connection to Golby marked as unknown. The Golby wiki says exactly this. The exact meaning behind this, as well as the full nature of his connection to Golb, is unknown. That's the creative team acknowledging that they built something without resolving it. The Lich is Golb's scholar. The meaning of that scholarship is deliberately left open. The ceaseless wheel is the Lich's self-description. The implication that the wheel turns across timelines and universes is supported by the Farmworld hand's knowledge of events it wasn't present for. All of this is in the text. The theory that synthesizes it into a complete account of the Lich's nature was never denied, because the show gave you all the pieces and declined to assemble them. Now let me give you something I've been wanting to say about the category theories the show never denied, that goes beyond the individual theories. The existence of this category, the theories that are supported by evidence, acknowledged by creators, neither confirmed nor denied, is itself a creative choice. Shows that want to be unambiguous make their worlds unambiguous. The creators of Lost, to use the obvious comparison, eventually confirmed and denied enough theories that the discourse shifted from open speculation to contested interpretation. The Harry Potter series has Rowling actively confirming and denying theories decades after publication. Game of Thrones resolved enough mysteries that the unresolved ones feel like oversights rather than intentional spaces. Adventure Time could have done this. The creative team knew which theories existed. Muto engaged with them publicly. They could have used social media and interviews and DVD commentaries to systematically confirm or deny. The show's wiki, which creators have engaged with, could have been updated to close these questions definitively. They didn't. The theories remain undenied in the active sense. The creators had the opportunity to deny them and chose not to, not because they forgot, because the theories being open serves something. The theory about what that something is. Adventure Time's creators understood that the show's value to its audience included the space for speculation. The theories that proliferate around the show are part of what the show is. The audience thinking about the show, constructing the theories, sharing them, refining them, is the show extending beyond its official runtime. The show in discussion is a different and richer thing than the show watched in isolation. Leaving the theories undenied keeps that extension possible. Confirming or denying would collapse the speculative space, would turn the audience's thinking from open exploration into either vindicated or corrected interpretation. The open theories keep the audience in a specific relationship to the show, where they're participants rather than just receivers. The creators of Adventure Time were sophisticated enough to understand this, and the fact that they left the space open is not negligence. It's a creative decision about what the show is. Adventure Time includes its own theorizing audience as part of what it is. The theories the show never denied are the invitation to that inclusion, which means tonight's video isn't separate from the show. Tonight's video is part of what the show is, operating in the space the show deliberately left open. The theorizing is the show continuing. Here's a specific theory I want to add that I haven't covered yet. The theory about what the Candy People's relationship to Princess Bubblegum tells you about the show's approach to consciousness. PB created the Candy People. They are, in some sense, her constructions, artificial beings built from candy biomass, given personalities and the ability to panic and to love and to form communities. They are genuinely conscious. The show treats them as fully real people with genuine inner lives. But here's the thing, their consciousness emerged from PB's design. They have feelings because PB built beings capable of having feelings. They have specific personalities because PB constructed them with specific character traits. Their inner lives are the inner lives that PB built for them. The theory the show never denied. The Candy People's experience is genuine and manufactured simultaneously. There is no contradiction between these. Genuine experience can emerge from constructed origins. A being that was built to have feelings has feelings that are genuinely its own. The fact that the feelings were installed doesn't make them less real. This is a theory about consciousness in general, not just about the Candy People, and Adventure Time deploys it without naming it. The Candy People's genuine inner lives, despite their constructed origins, are the show's argument that consciousness doesn't require an unmanufactured source to be real. Apply this to the theories about Finn. If Finn is dreaming the world's people have genuine inner lives even within the dream. They're real in the way Candy People are real, which is to say, fully real in their own terms, even if their origins are unusual. The dream theory and the reality of Oo's inhabitants are compatible because the show has already established that constructed reality is no less real than unconstrued reality. The Candy People are conscious. The Candy People were built by PB, both true. This is the show's argument that artificial origin doesn't undermine genuine experience. Apply it to the coma theory. Even if Oo is dreamed, the people in it experience things genuinely. The reality of the dream doesn't diminish the reality of what's experienced within it. The show never denied this because it built the argument through the Candy People specifically. PB's creation of genuine consciousness is the show's demonstration that origin doesn't determine authenticity. The coma theory can't be dismissed by saying, but then nothing is real, because the Candy People show that things can be both constructed and real. Let me close this expansion with the theory that I find most moving, because I want to leave some emotional content in this section before the final close. The theory about what Jake meant by, don't let go of what you love. This isn't a theory that's been widely discussed, but in various episodes, Jake expresses a philosophy about holding on to things that matter. He's pragmatic about a lot of things. Jake can be casual about stakes that Finn finds enormous, can let go of things that would devastate someone with less emotional flexibility. But there's a category of things that Jake holds on to absolutely. Finn, Lady, the people who constitute his family. The theory Jake's holding on is what sustains the show's reality. In a show where reality is questionable, where dreams and realities blur, where the multiverse creates infinite contingent possibilities, Jake's specific, unyielding attachment to the people he loves is what makes the primary timeline feel more real than the alternatives. Jake doesn't hold on to abstract principles. He holds on to specific people in specific relationships. And in a show where Golb is trying to return everything to undifferentiated chaos, where the extinction principle operates toward a reality with no specific things in it, Jake's specificity is the counter-argument, not cosmic renewal principles, just Jake, holding on to the specific people he loves. The catalyst comet theory establishes Finn as the cosmic principle of renewal, but Jake, whatever his cosmic nature might be, is the show's argument for something smaller and more intimate, the value of the specific, the one thing not another, the named person, rather than the abstract category. Jake loves Finn specifically, not heroes or renewal principles. Finn. Jake loves Lady specifically, not a partner, Lady Rainicorn, who speaks Korean, who has specific characteristics that Jake understands because he learned them. Jake's love is the most concrete and untheoretical thing in a show full of theories and cosmological architecture. The theory that never gets denied is that this specificity is what makes the primary timeline worth sustaining. Not that it's cosmically more important than other timelines, but that the specific attachments within it, Jake and Finn, Jake and Lady, the specific people in the specific treehouse, are real in the way that cosmological principles are not quite real. The abstract can be anywhere, the specific can only be here. And Jake's love for Finn, across every season, through the multiverse, through death and the dead worlds, and reincarnation, is the show's argument for here. For this specific timeline, these specific people, this specific story, not because it's cosmically superior, because Jake is here, and Finn is here, and the specific love between them is here. And that specificity is its own kind of reality, that no cosmic principle can quite account for. The show never denied this, because denying it would have required them to make Jake's love abstract, and Jake's love is the least abstract thing in the show. The specific love between specific people is what the show is for. All the theories point back to this, even the theories that operate at the cosmic scale. The comets, the multiverse, the Lich's connection to Golb, exist in service of the question, why does this specific love between this specific dog and this specific boy matter? The theories never answer this question. The show doesn't answer it either. It just keeps showing you the love and trusting you to know that it matters. That's the undenied theory at the center of everything. Love is the thing that the show won't theorize away. Everything else, reality, consciousness, cosmological significance, the nature of the multiverse, can be theorized. Love stays put. Jake held on to the end. And in Together Again, the soul that was Jake chose to come back to the specific person that was Finn, not to a cosmic principle, to Finn. The most persistent thing in Adventure Time's universe isn't the extinction principle, or the renewal principle, or the cosmic wish granter. It's Jake's love for Finn, moving through every form available to it, through life, through death, through the dead worlds, through a new body, in a new age. The show never denied this. How could it? It was the whole point. Let me now address the final set of undenied theories that I haven't covered, because there are a few more that belong in this script. The theory about what Peppermint Butler's relationship with death means for the show's cosmology. Peppermint Butler can negotiate with death. This is established in Death in Bloom, Season 2, Episode 22, where Finn and Jake go to the land of the dead to retrieve PB's plant. Peppermint Butler is already known there. Death gives Peppermint Butler credit for a future interaction, asking for a piece of Finn's skin later. The show presents this as a casual exchange between beings with an ongoing relationship. PB's butler, who appears to be a small, formal candy person, has a standing arrangement with Death. Death knows him. They have a history. The theory the show never denied. Peppermint Butler has been operating in the space between life and death for the entirety of PB's rule, potentially for centuries, without PB's knowledge. His dark wizard powers aren't just dark in the sense of morally complicated. They're dark in the sense of being connected to death, to the space beyond life, to the management of what happens after existence ends. If Peppermint Butler's power connects him to the death system, then his centuries of accumulation aren't just about becoming a more powerful wizard. He's been building a relationship with the entity that manages death itself. He's been cultivating influence in the most fundamental structural element of Adventure Time's universe, after the cosmic principles themselves. What was he planning to do with that influence? The show never answered this, because the Wizard City special stripped his power before the question could be fully asked. The Golb event reset him. Whatever Peppermint Butler was building across centuries of dark wizardry, whatever the culmination of his relationship with death was supposed to be, got erased in the finale's chaos. That's one of the show's most genuinely unresolved threads. Not the Pillow World family, not Martin's crime, Peppermint Butler's centuries-long project with death, interrupted before it could complete, never explained, and never denied. The theory about what Marceline's biological relationship to her music actually is. Marceline is a vampire. Vampires don't need food, but they do need blood. And specifically, the show establishes Marceline needs the color red in her food, explaining why she can eat strawberries and red velvet cake rather than specifically needing blood. Her hunger is aesthetic as much as biological. She needs red, not specifically the protein in blood. The theory: Marceline's music serves the same function as her food. She extracts emotional sustenance from music the way she extracts biological sustenance from red. Music is not just Marceline's art form or her coping mechanism. It's part of how she metabolizes experience and continues to exist. This explains why Marceline's music is always processing something specific. She's not writing songs for performance. She's processing her experience through music in the same biological way she processes her need for sustenance through red. Both are ways of taking something from the environment and converting it into what she needs to continue. The show never denied this because it's built from the combination of two established facts: Marceline's need for red, aestheticized biological need, and Marceline's compulsive relationship to music, emotional need that looks biological in its urgency. The theory is what you get when you apply the first fact's framework to the second fact. Marceline processes through music. The processing is not metaphorical, it's her equivalent of eating. This reframes every Marceline music scene. When she sings "I'm Just Your Problem," she's not performing frustration. She's metabolizing it, extracting from it what she needs to continue. When she and the Ice King make "Remember You," she's taking Simon's letters, Simon's emotional content, and converting them into something she can live on. The song is the conversion process, visible to the audience. The show never denied this, because it's the logical extension of Marceline's established biology applied to her established artistic practice. The creators built both parts. The theory assembles them. Here's the theory about Finn's relationship to violence that I find most precise. Finn is the hero. Heroes fight. This is the show's surface premise, and Finn's primary mode of action across the early seasons. He fights monsters. He defeats villains. He protects people. And then, progressively through the middle and later seasons, the show complicates this. The Tower, the episode about Finn building a tower to get to his father and confront him, is largely about Finn's anger. The Jiggler, early seasons, is one of the first times the show shows Finn's aggression as potentially harmful. The episode Shh demonstrates Finn's difficulty with stillness and non-action. The theory the show never denied: Finn's heroism and Finn's violence are the same impulse, expressing differently depending on context. When violence is sanctioned, when the target is identifiable as evil, Finn's impulse to physically engage becomes heroism. When the target is ambiguous or inappropriate, Martin, his own grief, the situations where violence doesn't solve anything, the same impulse becomes a problem. This theory is built into the show's structure by the way it repeatedly places Finn in situations where his default solution, fight, doesn't work. The episodes where Finn has to sit still with something rather than fighting it, the grief, the complicated emotions, the moral ambiguity, are the show complicating the hero premise. Finn is brave and capable and genuinely good. He's also a 12-year-old boy whose primary method of engaging with the world is physical aggression, and the show gradually makes him confront what that means. The show never denied this because the evidence for it is the shape of Finn's character arc. The early seasons show heroic aggression. The later seasons show the complications of that aggression. The arc from fight everything to sometimes the answer isn't fighting is the show's central narrative about Finn that all the cosmic law is in service of. He's the renewal principle, yes. He's also a specific 12-year-old boy with a specific personality that includes specific limitations. The theory that his heroism and his violence are the same impulse is the theory that makes the cosmic and the personal versions of his story cohere. The renewal principle works through a specific person with a specific nature, and that nature includes both the best and most complicated things about Finn. The show never denied this theory, because denying it would have required them to make Finn's growth about overcoming his violence entirely. Instead, the show's arc is Finn learning to direct his impulse more accurately, to fight things worth fighting, and sit with things that need sitting with. The impulse doesn't go away, it becomes more precisely aimed. Now let me give you the theory about what the show's most emotionally complex moment, I Remember You, is actually doing philosophically. I Remember You, Season 4, Episode 25, is frequently cited as one of the best episodes of the show. The original title was Help. The specific achievement of the episode is holding two incompatible things simultaneously: the Ice King's genuine happiness in making music with Marceline, and Marceline's grief at the fact that the Ice King is singing Simon's words without understanding what they mean. The theory, I Remember You, is the show's most precise statement about the ethics of love in the presence of damage. Marceline knows that the Ice King is Simon. She knows what Simon felt and wrote. She knows the specific horror of having Simon's love delivered to her through the mechanism that destroyed him. And she makes music with the Ice King anyway. Not because it's comfortable, because it's the only way to be with what remains of Simon. The theory the show never denied, I Remember You, is the show demonstrating what love looks like when the object of love is no longer fully there. Not grief. Grief would require accepting the absence. Not denial. Denial would require pretending the absence isn't real, something else. A sustained presence in the specific discomfort of loving something that has become an imperfect version of what it was. Marceline doesn't love the Ice King as a substitute for Simon. She doesn't pretend the Ice King is Simon. She loves the Ice King as what Simon currently is, as the specific form Simon exists in, incomplete and damaged, and genuinely happy in his incompleteness. And her love for Simon is expressed through her willingness to be with what Simon currently is. The show never denied this theory because the episode demonstrates it. Marceline cries because she understands what's happening. The Ice King is happy because he doesn't understand. Both of those things are true, and Marceline chooses to maintain the connection rather than withdraw from it. This is the show making a specific argument about love, that love for someone who has changed beyond recognition doesn't require pretending they're the same person they were. It just requires being present with who they currently are, while holding the knowledge of who they were, without the knowledge becoming a barrier to the presence. That's not a comforting argument. It's an honest one, and the show never denied it. Here's the very last theory, because I want to close with something about what all of these theories share. Every theory in tonight's video, the coma, the BMO narrator, the Lich cycle, the GOLB Mushroom War connection, Peppermint Butler's centuries-long project with death, Marceline metabolizing experience through music, Finn's heroism and violence as the same impulse, the ethics of love in I Remember You, the ruins in the title sequence. All of them are theories about what the show is doing underneath what the show is showing. All of them propose a depth that the surface acknowledges without spelling out. All of them are built from evidence the show put there. All of them are things the creators were aware of and declined to close. What all of these theories share is that they are the show's invitation extended. Adventure Time built a world, embedded evidence, declined to synthesize, and trusted the audience to do the synthesis. Every theory that proliferates around the show is the audience accepting that invitation. Every video like this one, spending hours examining the theories, assembling evidence, proposing frameworks, is the show's invitation in action. The show never denied any of these theories, because denying them would have closed the invitation. Adventure Time's relationship to its audience is predicated on the invitation remaining open. The evidence is there, you do the work, you find what you find, and the finding is part of what the show is. The theories the show never denied are the show saying, keep looking, keep thinking, keep finding things. The world is bigger than what we've shown you, and we built it to be. And 15 years into a fandom that is still looking and thinking and finding things, the invitation is still open. Thank you for being part of the finding. Subscribe, come back, leave a comment with the theory that feels truest to you. The invitation is still open. One more pass. The theories I want to give their proper weight before we close. The theory about what the show's relationship to music tells you about its understanding of consciousness. Adventure Time is full of music, not just Marceline's music. Every major character has a musical moment. Simon sings the Cheers theme. BMO's song defeats GOLB. Jake plays viola. The Candy People sing together in the finale, and it hurts GOLB. Music appears at the show's most emotionally significant moments in a way that exceeds what narrative convenience requires. The theory, music in Adventure Time functions as consciousness made audible. When characters sing, they're accessing something in themselves that normal language can't reach. The specific things that get expressed in songs, Simon's desperation, Marceline's grief, BMO's love, are things the characters can't say directly in dialogue. The songs are the inside made audible. This is why GOLB is vulnerable to harmony. GOLB is chaos, undifferentiated, unordered. Harmony is consciousness, expressing its specific character through organized sound. Music is consciousness, asserting its specific nature against chaos. When the people of Oo sing together and it hurts Golb, the show is saying that consciousness, expressing itself, coheres into something that chaos can't absorb. The theory the show never denied. Music is Adventure Time's model for consciousness, and the specific musical character of each character. Simon's funny songs that aren't funny, Marceline's songs that process what language can't hold, BMO's songs that sustain existence itself, is the show's deepest portrayal of who those characters are. You understand Simon most fully, not from his tapes and his letters, but from what he reached for in the moment of maximum pressure. The Cheers theme, a song about belonging. That's who Simon is. The reaching is music. The music is Simon. The show never denied this, because the evidence is the show's own choices about when to deploy music. The moments that seem to call for music are the moments the show most needs to access the inside of its characters. The music is the theory's evidence. And here's the undenied implication. If music is consciousness, and if BMO's song is what ultimately weakens GOLB, then the show's final argument is that consciousness, specifically expressed, specifically voiced, specifically organized, is what defeats chaos. Not power, not cosmic principles, voice, the specific human act of singing. The show never denied this because confirming it would have required them to explain the mechanism by which music hurts Golb. They just showed you the music and showed you Golb being hurt and let you assemble the theory. The assembly is consciousness, specifically expressed, defeats the principle of undifferentiated chaos. Every character who sings in Adventure Time is making the same argument. The show was building toward a musical finale from the beginning, and the ceaseless wheel, the Lich, the extinction principle, the chaos god, couldn't absorb the song because the song was specific. The song was someone. The song was everyone in Ooo, with their specific voices, singing something they knew. That's the show's final argument. Specific consciousness against undifferentiated chaos. Voice against silence. The song against the wheel, and the song won once. It'll have to win again eventually. The wheel turns. But in this timeline, at this moment, the song was enough. That's the theory the show never denied, and it's the most beautiful thing I've found in 15 years of thinking about Adventure Time. Thank you for spending tonight with all of this. Truly, subscribe, leave a comment. The theories are still in the show, waiting for whoever looks next. The ruins are there, the joy is there, the song is still echoing. Keep listening. And I want to end with something that's been sitting at the back of my mind this whole script, because it's the most honest thing I can say about why we make videos like this. The theories the show never denied are not really about the show. They're about what the show reveals about the people who love it. The Finn coma theory, at its heart, is about wanting the adventures to matter more than their circumstances. If Finn is dreaming, the adventures are beautiful precisely because they're fragile, because a dreamer will eventually wake up and all of it will be gone. And the question becomes, was it worth it? Does the temporary beauty of a dream matter? The coma theory is the theory of the person who loves something, knowing it won't last, and asking whether that love was still real. The BMO narrator theory is about the specific form of love that expresses itself through telling. BMO alone, constructing stories, making the world meaningful through narrative. That's the love of someone who has experienced beautiful things and can't stop trying to make other people understand what they were. The BMO narrator theory is the theory of the person who watched Adventure Time and needed to tell someone about it. The Lich cycle theory is about accepting that the bad things come back, that you defeat something and it returns in a new form, that the work of keeping the extinction principle at bay is never finished. The ceaseless wheel is the theory of the person who has watched something they love get destroyed and has had to start over and knows they'll have to start over again and is still doing it. The theory about Jake's love is about specificity, about the value of loving one specific thing rather than a category. Jake's love for Finn, specifically, Lady specifically, his specific family. That's the theory of the person who has loved something so specifically that the idea of its absence is genuinely unbearable. All the theories the show never denied are theories about the people who hold them. The show built a space for that, built a world big enough and open enough that the audience's own questions and fears and loves could be projected into it and reflected back as theories. That's what fiction is for, not to show you the truth abstractly, to give you a space where your specific truth can appear. Adventure Time never denied the theories because the theories are true, not about the show, about the people who made them. The theories are honest about what the audience brought to the show, what it gave them back, what they found in the space the show left open, and that space is still open. 15 years in, the show ended, and the space didn't close. Come back whenever you need it. The ruins are there, the joy is there, the song is still echoing. Subscribe. The conversation continues. The last word on Not Denied. Adam Muto said the coma theory was too easy. He didn't say it was wrong. He said the show was more interesting than a simple dream explanation. He was right. The show is more interesting. The dream logic, the BMO narration, the ceaseless wheel, the specific love that persists across death. These are all things the show is doing that exceed the simplistic version of "It's all a dream." They're the show operating at multiple scales simultaneously, each true in its own register, none of them cancelling the others. The theories that the show never denied are the theories that give the show the credit Muto was asking for. They're not reductions, they're the show seen at its full complexity, which is larger than any single theory can hold, and which has been inviting attentive viewers to keep looking since the first episode aired in 2010. Keep looking. The invitation is still open. Good night.